welcome to my March Tangle of the Year video. I had an idea to do a variation on Huggins, the Tangle of the Year. You'll see on this tile, this is a traditional configuration for Huggins, but what we're going to work on today is a little bit different. The materials I'm going to use are a 3.5-inch square white Zentangle tile. If you do not have one of these, you can take some multimedia paper or watercolor paper, smooth watercolor paper, and cut it into a 3.5-inch square. A black Micron 01 pen, a soft pencil, I'm using the Zentangle one, but any soft pencil will do, and a tortillon. We'll add color later, but that's what we'll be starting with. So let's jump right in. We'll go through the steps of the Zentangle method as we go. So we start with gratitude and appreciation. So take a deep breath. And just center ourselves. Forget what else that might be troubling us in our lives. And be thankful for this moment that we have a little bit of time to dedicate to nurturing our own creativity and focus. Step 2 is corner dots, and we will be adding them for this project. So let's take our tile and just gently put 4 dots. One near each corner. Step 3 is the border, which we are also going to use for this project. And for this I'm just using a very simple border, lightly connecting the lines between each of the corner dots. The next step is the string. For this string, we will be using a very particular string that I thought would be fun for March. So what we're going to do is, before you put any marks on the paper, let's envision as if you fit 3 circles, orbs, into this tile. And we want the edges to touch, and we want the sides of the circles, 2 on the bottom to touch these sides, and 1 on the top to touch the top. They do not need to touch the bottom border here. So kind of envision how big they'll be, then gently draw those circles on the paper. So you'll see mine, actually all 3 of them touch right there in the center. And they touch each side and the top. If yours don't touch exactly, but they're reasonably close, that's fine. So we can set our pencil aside because step 5, tangle, will do with the micron pen. So I'm going to try leading you one stroke at a time. So maybe, yeah, I think I want to start here in the middle. And what I'd like us to do is, you see there's a part where there's a little gap between these two. So right down there, draw a little circle that is on the inside of your leftmost orb. And we'll start there. Now, on this orb, we're going to draw another circle that is, let's say, right about there. And what we're going to do is, with pen, trace, start on the outside edge of one of those circles, and for the most part trace the pencil line of that orb. Now let's make a circle rather near the second one, and this time we're going to make an arc connecting them on the inside of the circle. We're going to continue around, and again, at a spot that's a little bit away from where these two circles intersect, a little before the intersection, we'll put another circle, and again, we'll connect these two. And it's okay to turn your tile to make it easy to make this connection. So here we're going to jump over to this top pencil circle that we drew and make your little circle right on the inside like that. And we're going to connect these with an arc that goes just like that. Up here where it hits the top, let's put one circle a little to the left of center and draw that around. Make another tiny orb and connect them. And you might be able to see where we're going with it on this side. A little bit above where this intersection is, I'm going to make a tiny circle and then connect along this pencil line. Put a matching circle there and a short arced connection. Over here, let's see, I'll put a little circle about right there. I'll come around, connect it to the previous one. Connect that. Now one more, I'm going to turn my tile to make it easier to follow that pencil line. And these last two we will also connect with a little arc. Now none of these is a complete Huggins shape, but I thought this might be the easiest way to work through the whole process. So what we're going to do is repeat this a few more times in an abbreviated way. So we've got these two little dots here. I'm going to add two more so they kind of make a little square constellation. And I'm going to connect them short ways like this to match or to mirror the little short connection over there. Let's do the same here. And again, there. Now on these sides, we're going to make short connections like left and right parentheses. And we're going to turn our tile so we can make left and right parentheses there, and left and right parentheses there. And we have our little completed Huggins shapes there. Now let's make some more connections. I think I'm going to work counterclockwise just because it's an easy way to make the arcs. So I'm going to go, here we've got this bottom, let's call this the bottom link, left link, and right link. Let's start at the bottom link, the upper right hand dot, and we're going to connect it to the lower left side dot of this one in a round arc. So this one doesn't have to exactly trace the pencil line, because you'll see my pencil line, like they're all overlap now. So we'll just kind of make an imaginary circle that fills this out as best it can. So, you know, I'm imagining if this was to go in a circle and yet hit here, where would it go? Probably like that. So I'm just going to make an arc, just like that, connecting those two. And I'm going to do the same over on this side, from this upper left to that lower right. Like an imaginary circle. It's going to cut down there a little bit, but I'll try and maybe make it a little bit rounder. And now these two are going to connect together. I'm going to turn it to make it easier to make that arc shape. And I'm going to make it, I don't want it to touch either of these two lines, but it can swoop down and be like reasonably close to that line. So let's see. Just like that. And we're going to add one more Huggins at the bottom. And for that, I'm going to, let's start with a dot right here on the left. And I want it to come out, yeah, so maybe the same distance to the left as that. Just sitting right on the border. And I'm going to make an arc line from here to here. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Turn the tile to make that arc a little easier to draw and connect from this dot to that one. Now these two that are hanging out at the bottom, I'm going to connect them from one circle to the other. So by using those 3 pencil circles as our string, this is more representational than a traditional Zentangle because it's clearly meant to evoke a shamrock. So this is Zentangle inspired art. Now we're going to draw a few more lines to kind of enhance the effect of all these Huggins. So on all these little short bits inside, let's just call them the shamrock petals, we're going to draw an aura which just echoes that short little connecting line. And we're going to start it at one end of our leaf shape and finish it at the other. And I'm just going to do one leaf at a time, and each leaf will have 3 of these auras. So take your time and turn the tile to make it easy. So on the inside part, you'll aura around that orb too, the whole line there. Now moving on to this top leaf. And on to the final leaf. 1, 2, 3. Now this one is looking a little bit bare, so I am going to add an aura around the outside. So I'm going to start from this edge, go around, and finish on that edge. So tracing around the orb, across the bottom connector, and around that little circle again. Now I'm going to go around the entire rest of the path, this whole shape, and I'm going to start here, go around, and end here. And I'm going to make it about the same distance away from the main lines as all these other auras. So I'm just going to echo that line till I get to a spot where it's going to be about the same distance to echo around here. I'm turning my tile often just to make it easy. Now here, these are close enough. I can't really get in there with an aura, so I'm just going to go like that and continue around. You'll see on mine I'm going out past the border. That's fine. It doesn't matter whether you're inside the border or outside the border. Feel free to pick up your pen when you need to. You'll see here, it's not a perfect point. That's fine. Just, you want to echo the existing lines, whichever way they go. Some may have more room than others. That's okay. And now when I get around to this side, I'm just going to connect right there. And so this is going to be our basic shape that we're working with today. What I'm going to do though is do a little bit of rounding and enhancing the line around the outside edge to make it stand out a little more from the background. And how I do that is anywhere there are these pointy bits, I'm just going to kind of smooth that over and color it in. So like a smooth line if you're tracing, so instead of being pointy, as if you're just making a curved line between these two. And then I'm going to continue around and just draw over the existing line, and that's going to make it just a little thicker and darker and make it stand out. So here, just make a gentle curve to connect from this side to the next, and then color this in. And I will continue redefining the outside line and adding curves to anything that is a sharp edge. Now this is a pretty sharp edge here, so you just kind of arbitrarily pick a point where you can make a curved edge and then carefully color that in. And here that hits an angle too. I'm also going to round that out. Coming around the bottom. And I've gone all the way around. Now I think I'm going to redefine some of the interior lines also before we add color. So let's do the same thing inside each of our leaves. So I'll start here because it's conveniently located again. Here's a little sharp bit, so I'm just going to go here, strengthen that line, connect it here. There we go. So you see, it's a fairly subtle difference that we're making, say, between this one and this one, which we haven't done yet. But it just makes this one look a little more finished. So we're going to do that for all 3 leaves. Just pick a spot somewhere on the inside to round out a corner and redefine the existing lines. Turning the tile as you go to make the process easy and relaxing. Alright, 2 done. I'm going to move on to the 3rd. And we might as well go ahead and redefine the stem here too. Let's see. know, before we move on to coloring, I think I'm going to smooth out all these little corners. Here, do 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll move over. Yep, I'll do these 2. So I'm starting from the arced line and just smoothing up to like kind of hug that circle. Just like that. And coming around here some that aren't smoothed out yet. You can see these are just tiny little marks that I'm making. They're subtle. Right here, that didn't go quite smoothly around the outside, so wherever you want to make things a little bit smoother, go ahead and do that now before we add color. I can't help myself. I like smoothing, rounding these edges of our auras a little bit too. Alright, so I think that is all I want to fuss with the line work right now. So because this is Zentangle inspired art, we're not going to move on to shading quite yet. We're going to add some more embellishments first. So I'm going to add color in the form of, this is a Tombow dual brush tip marker. This is, I think, color 195. It's worn off a little. And I'm also, these are water soluble markers, so you can use any water soluble marker. I'm also just putting a drop of water nearby and using a paintbrush. This is a number 2 round, but whatever you have handy. And all I'm doing is getting that a little bit wet with plain water. So I'm going to color these big vast expanses here green and not color the other detail parts. So you'll see that I'm going to use the watercolor to even the color out a little bit. So it doesn't have to be perfectly even when you're laying it down, but you do want to be pretty precise and not get it. Well, I like to color in the lines for this particular project. But if you go outside the lines, you know, it could have a different effect. Sometimes it's the unexpected things that look good. So you see that's colored in fairly thoroughly, but not perfectly. I didn't worry about it too much. So I'm just going to take my water on the brush and kind of just smooth it over. Be sure if there's any little white gaps where the paper is showing through, I like to fill those in. And it's not a lot of water because the Zentangle tiles, well, they're good for mixed media. It's not true watercolor paper, and so you'll see it doesn't, if you're used to watercolors, it handles a little bit differently. So I'm just kind of covering the whole surface, moving that pigment around. And so I think I like just the sort of uneven watercolor effect of adding water to the markers. You'll see the difference when we do the other one. Try not to touch it because it will, until it's dry, it will get on your fingers and then it can get over other surfaces. So be a little mindful of that as you color in the next one. Let's see, I'm pretty careful around the edges here. And then you can, when you have a little more room, be a little looser filling in the color. Now, I do find these Tombow markers are pretty forgiving once you get them wet, but I do like to work one section at a time because if the ink sinks too far into the paper, it's harder to lift and spread around with the water. Whereas if you do this right after you color it, it moves around pretty easily and you don't really need that much water, which is good because the less water you use, the faster it will dry. I just like to eyeball it, like this one patch doesn't, you know, if there's any part you think you want to make a little softer, just push the pigment around. Go. And if you don't happen to have these Tombow dual brush tips, the Crayola markers that are frequently, required for school purchases for elementary schools, those are very water soluble also, and those work really well too. So if you have a set of those lying around, you can do the exact same process with those. I think their green color is also perfectly appropriate for this. Now I personally like coloring in using a paintbrush, but that may be a personal preference. If you like using just the markers, then you can stick with that. You don't have to blend it with a brush. Some markers have like blending markers, and so that offers a very precise way to blend if you like doing that. But if you just take your time with the brush, it's also very precise. Alright, now the stem. Actually here, I just realized it like the stem actually looks like it's part of this central point, so I'm not going to color all the way up to the tippy top. I'm going to put most of my color down here towards the bottom, and then I'll start by blending this, and I'm just going to soften the edges as we get up this way, because I want it to fade to white. So now what I'm going to do is just take a clean tissue and get the green off so it's pure clear water again, and just kind of brush that color towards the base of the stem. There we go. So we've got a very gentle transition from green to white right there. Now for the background, I'm going to choose what color I want for the background. You can probably do anything. I had pulled out a brighter green, but I think what I want to do instead is yellow. Well, no, I'll stick with the bright green. So this is another, so here is the one we used, number 195 for the Shamrock. And this one, oh, I can't tell you what number it is. It's completely worn off, but it's slightly brighter. And let's see, since the Shamrock is like the darkest thing, I want the background to be light where it hits the Shamrock. So what I'm going to do here is just fill in these corners, like right up to my border. I'm just going to make this part, drag it out just a little bit, like that. And then, when I get the water on, I'm just going to drag it out a little bit at a time. And I'm not going to actually touch the border here. I'm just going to create an aura of white to surround my Shamrock. To soften the edge, I get a clean brush and put the water in the white paper section, and then it will kind of pick up the edge of the pigment and take it backwards. So I'm going to do that all the way around. And right now it's a pretty sizable white portion, and I may wind up drawing the color nearer, but you can't go backwards. So I'm going to start with like a conservative amount of ink, because I can always go back and add more, but you can't really add more white space once you've colored it. So I've drug the color out to sort of an aura. Now I'm going to add some clean water and just soften the edges going in. And I will repeat for the last two corners, then we'll take a look and see whether that's what we want, or we want to add a little more background color. Again, I like to work with just one section at a time rather than laying down all the ink in each corner and then doing the water. But if you have watercolor paper, it may be less of an issue for you, or a different kind of pen. All materials are unique, so you can get to know the materials you have on hand, and every artist has their favorites. So someone who works quickly may like something that dries quickly too, so they can move on. Someone who works more slowly may prefer materials that stay workable for longer. There's no best material out there. It's all very much personal preference and you know, what works for your style of creating. Nope, I've used up my water droplets. I just have repurposed an eyedropper that I keep near my desk, so I can dispense individual drops of water as I need them. Alright, now take a look. Sometimes you want to hold your tile out at arm's length. See if I can zoom out here and see. So I think I can use a little more color. I don't think I need that much white around the outside. So I'm going to repeat this process. Zoom back in. Okay, this one dry. So I'm not actually going to, I guess I'm making it a little bigger, but just having this extra layer of color is going to be enough to spread it a little bit further. So now that I've got the color spread to probably where I want it, I'm just going to back in with a wet brush and kind of soften the edge. There, I like that. Now, if you've done this and you actually like a lighter background, you don't have to add more. This project is for your pleasure. However you want your tile to look, that's how it should look. Alright, let's soften this inside edge. One more corner. Alright, now I thought it'd be fun to add a little bit of gold. I'm just debating whether I want to only do these little rivets sort of things in gold, or do I want to do the entire border in gold? I think I want to do the entire border in gold, but I don't want this middle part to be quite so solid, so I'm going to go back and take my pen and add an aura in the middle here. So I'm just trying to make kind of a distance around the outside there, and I'm going to round the inside edges. And I'm going to make that dark green, like it's a little cutout. There we go, that's small enough, I don't even have to use the water to smooth it out. Yes, I like that. So let's take a gold jelly roll pen. This is a Jelly Roll Metallic Gold. I think all the metallic ones are 10s. And just start adding some gold. Inside these lines here. To get a nice even coat with a jelly roll, you don't want to press down very much. Just enough to get that roller to release some of the ink. Because if you press down too hard, it'll look streaky. We want that ink to just kind of fall out of the pen. Onto this part of the paper. I'm just covering up the white paper with the gold metallic ink all the way around the outside edge of our shamrock. Drawing my tile as I go. So I can see clearly the channel that I'm coloring in. If you don't have a gold jelly roll pen, any fine tip metallic pen will give a similar effect. I also have a Uniball Signo metallic gel pens, and I use those sometimes too. The gold color is slightly darker than this. And I actually have not tried both with this combination of inks, so I don't know which one, looks better. They both look good. I'm skipping that bottom one for now because I'm doing the outside edge. So I'm going to start, let me finish the outside edge from around this side. Now I will do the center section in gold. Now the metallic ink does take a few seconds to dry, so be careful as you're touching the rest of your tile not to get your fingers in it if you can help it. And here I'm just going to put a little, kind of feather it down. Alright, I think I want to do these auras in gold also. So let me go ahead. Coloring those auras. And this bottom one. Alright, so now these links are sticking out as being bright white. I think I don't want them to be bright white. So let's add a little more embellishments. Now remember, the gold paint is still a little bit wet. So try not to touch it. But let's go back with our pen and add some embellishments to these little links. Okay, this one is particularly skinny, these two. So I'm just going to go like that and like that. Again, more auras, just kind of outlining the shape that's already there. I like that. And I'm going to fill in these circles as black right now. There we go. I'll fill in these as black. 1, 2, and come around here. So I've got a little more room. So let's see if my aura goes all the way through. I think it might. So I will take this one. Instead of making a triangle, I think I'll be able to do both sides. And now I'll make a triangle. This side even gets 2 triangles. This one's a tiny little minuscule one. And again, I'm going to color these dots in black. And that just makes them disappear. for no other reason than I prefer the look of that. Here we go. This is another one that's very skinny in the middle. So I will just aura what I can. Which here is just like one triangle. Let's see, can I get two on this side? Yes. So your mileage may vary depending on how big your Huggins connector shapes turned out to be. Okay, there's still some white orbs I'm going to get rid of. And down here, I don't think we need those ones either. There we go. Now, we're going to move on to step 6, shade. Now, depending on what paper you have, you want to be sure that everything's dry before you start shading. But I'm going to add some shading with pencil. So the first thing I'm going to do, I think, is shade these little connectors. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to put a tiny thin pencil line right along that curve, and then use my tortillon to gently smooth that edge and pull the graphite a little to the center. And I'll do the same on the other side. These are such small little areas, you really don't need a lot of graphite to add some shading. Now with the pencil, I frequently do go ahead and add my pencil line to all the spots I'm going to shade at once, because you don't have to worry about a dry material sinking into the paper. Got that. I'm going to go ahead and put a little shading. You see where this goes in? A line of shading at each of these spots too. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going right over the gold paint because my gold paint is dry. If you attempt this before the gold paint is dry, you're going to make a mess. So be sure your gold paint is dry before you try shading over it. Now I'm also going to shade, because in Zentangle shading pushes things back, and I want the gold outline to look like it is on top of the green leaves. So to push the green back a little, I'm going to add just a line of graphite right up next to the pen line, all the way around on top of the green marker. And we're going to do the same thing after we get our pen line or our pencil line down here. I'm going to use my tortillon and gently pull that graphite in towards the center. And this one is so small, I'm going to color the whole thing in. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to go and add some pencil shading to each of these edges. And here, because we've got a transition, I'm going to start my pencil line about halfway down on either side and not go too far up towards the top. Now I also want to make these connectors pop a little bit, so I'm going to put a pencil line over the gold on either side and then kind of smooth that, soften the edge. Here, I guess if you have, I want a little more contrast. So this is just like a black colored pencil. I'm going to actually try and darken that just a little bit. there. So I think that this Shamrock project, this Shamrock Huggins for Tangle of the Year, is complete. So step 7 is initial and sign. So take your initials or a chop if you've made one, and just find wherever you want to put it. I'm going to put mine right down here. In the corner, and then flip it over and sign my name, and the date, and then I like to put a little something about it. So this is for Tangle of the Year 2025. It used Tangle Huggins. It's a mono tangle. It's the only tangle we used. And color with Tombow dual brush pens. My first video class. And the final step, of course, is appreciate. So if you guys, anyone who's made this wants to tag me on Instagram, that would be at Heidi Thorsen Art. Actually, I'll write that down. You can do hashtag or tag. It's also at. I would love to see everybody's shamrocks, Zentangled Inspire art that they made if they found this video. Thank you. Happy tangling.